So where are we? So today's Wednesday, the 22nd of Adar Aleph, and we're learning Yavur Levush Malchut. And so yesterday we had a long discussion about how Chochmah is on the one hand the beginning of Ishtalshelus, the beginning of the evolutionary cause and effect descent into the nefesh, into the worlds also, and that on the other hand it's also a reshit. It's reshit agilui. It's disconnected from the sovev. So let's go back to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, it's 8 lines up from the bottom. She'avu b'chinat v'nachnu ma. We just read in the daf 2 days ago that the world is sustained thanks to Moshe and Aaron, who said v'nachnu ma. And then there's another explanation that also means Misha Samatzmo Eino, that a person who has bittul, who makes himself as if he's not. In a certain sense, to say that I have no beginning also means that I guess that's sort of like a real capitalism, where you say I haven't inherited anything. I have to start from the beginning. And when it comes to Torah, that's how a person should feel all the time. Maybe that's an answer to your question. That the great thing about Torah is that every day that I go into the Beis Midrash, every time I open the book, I can make it as if I don't know anything. Why? Because relative to what I knew yesterday, what I'm going to learn now is infinitely more. We've talked about this, that a person has to feel that he's learning Torah from Hashem. I guess that's part of what it means. This isn't working. I guess it's part of what it means that I have no beginning above me, that I'm not connected to the source. Meaning every day Hashem has to descend down, and He descends down in the form of this book, and He teaches me. And in that sense, since I'm learning from the infinite, anything that I may have accumulated over time really is insignificant. It may be a building block that I can use, but it doesn't give me a picture of what Torah is. It's giving me skills, maybe. And every time that I come in, it's a new experience altogether. And it's not Stam I'm saying this. This is what it says. That every day, what you're learning has to seem to you like it's new, completely new. This is especially true about the mitzvahs. I mean, here we're talking about Torah as a mitzvah. Of course, in terms of accumulation, internally I know more and more, and I'm supposed to change. I'm not supposed to stay the same. If I'm staying the same, so it's exactly what we talked about in the beginning, that he's learning not in order to do. So that means he's not making it practical. So I'm supposed to change. It should be an uvechein, as we call it in Chassidus. A pol yoitze, some kind of conclusion, some kind of understanding that emerges from the learning. But when it comes to performing a mitzvah, and Torah is also a mitzvah, every mitzvah is new every day. Why? Because it's coming from the sovev. And like we said, there's a gap between us and the sovev, between the chokhmah, even the greatest bittul in the world, and the sovev and the surrounding light. There's always a gap. There's always some kind of leap that has to be made. So therefore, it's new every day. It's leaping over the gap every day anew. Okay. Moshe Rabbeinu she'av b'chinat v'nachnu ma, da'aynu b'chinat ayin mamash. He was mamash and ayin, mamash and nothing. Amar kvad peh v'kvad lashon, anochi kvad peh לגבי תורה שבעל פה, וכבד לשון בתורה שבכתב, שהייתה מדרגת נשמתו למעלה מבחינת התורה דאורייתא וחומן הפקט, שהיא בבחינת ראשית והתלבשות אור אין סוף ברוך הוא, שבאו בבחינת ממלא, כל המכסר השתלשלו, שמתלבש בבחינת עלמין בכל עולם לפי מדרגתו. So we said that Moshe Rabbeinu, his soul, because he is able to achieve such incredible bittul, his soul is in a state in which it's actually from the sovev, it's from somewhere else. And so when it's looking down in order to bring the Torah down, even his great chokhmah is not enough, and he feels like he has to make a leap. That's kvad peh and kvad lashon. He's stuttering. Why is he stuttering? Because it's so difficult for him to take that infinite from the sovev and bring it down into an evolutionary state, into a state that can propagate down and that people can understand what he wants to say. So that's the statement. אבל הארת והמשכת אור אינסוף ברוך הוא במעשה המצוות גשמיות, but like we just said, when it comes to a mitzvah, so the Or Sof, the Soivev, the way it emerges in a mitzvah is completely different. Meaning in a physical mitzvah, there's no stutter. So actually, it's not just, sometimes we picture there's a sovev around, and we have to get into the line that descends down. And there's a gap between the two. But the truth is, like he writes here, that the only way that you can make that leap is through the light of the surrounding, of the sovev, of the surrounding light. Because the whole meaning there is that it's not gradated, that you can make a leap. So it's actually, part of the sovev itself is to make that leap, and it seems as if there was nothing in between, and emerge into the chokhmah, emerge into the line that descends down.
So the mitzvah becomes independent of the Torah.
It's independent in the sense of that it's not independent. Obviously, the Torah is talking about the mitzvah,
right? But
literally about the mitzvah. But the source of the mitzvah itself is not coming from the Torah.
Right.
Okay. כמו שכתוב, כל דודי דופק, פתחי לי רעייתי. Just as says, my beloved is knocking on the doors, or open the door. מדלג אל הערים. When you look outside, you see him as if he's like he's a tzvi, he's an antelope, and he's jumping, he's leaping. Like we said, that the antelopes, they leap, they don't really run, they skip from one place to the next. לפי שאין הערה היא מלובשת ממש. So Hashem, in the sense of the giver of the Torah, who tells me to do mitzvos, he's like leaping from state to state. לפי שאין הערה היא מלובשת ממש בדברים גשמיים שבהם נעשים המצוות, כמו החוכמה המלובשת במידות ומידות במחשבה, לבחינת הערה בעלמא. And really, when you talk about the levush that goes into the nefesh itself from the mitzvah, it's only called a ha'ara. It's only a luminescence that comes out of that light that really cannot be contained in this world, the light of the soviv. Meaning that if it was contained in the world, that would exactly nullify the world. Because the world is a world of limits. It's a world of gradations, of processes, of hierarchies. That's the world that we live in. The world is suddenly everything would become infinite, would lose all borders. Really, the word in Chassidus that's used much more than infinite or finite is border or borderless, meaning having limits or not having limits. It's called Bal Gvul or Bilti Bal Gvul. Either it has limits or it doesn't have limits. So the light of the Sovev has no limits. That's really what's meant by it's infinite, meaning it doesn't work through processes, it doesn't work through all these things. So only a luminescence from that, only some like a certain I don't know what to call it, the glow from that light can enter into our world. והעניין הוא כי אם הייתה המשכת אור אינסוף שבתוך המין רק בדרך התפשטות והתלבשות בבחינת ממלא כל מיני סדר השתלשלות בדרך הילה והעלול, לא היו יכולים הנבראים להיות מאין ליש כלל, רק היו בטלים במקורם ושורשם, ואפילו התהוות בחינה חוכמה הילה, להיות חכים ולא חוכמה ידיעה מכל מקום, אחר שנקרא בשם חוכמה, הוא בחינת דבר מה, עד שעולה בשם בפני עצמו. So he says, if that light, the light of the infinite, or the borderless light, would come into this world and be enclosed, meaning be contained somehow in this world, so that would be like acid that it can't be contained. It's like, how do you put antimatter into matter? Basically, you can't do it. It would destroy everything. It would destroy all the meaning that we have in our understanding of borders. And borders is everything. Borders is also that I have one body, you have another one, that I have my thoughts, you have your thoughts. In the end, in the infinite, meaning without borders, they're all the same. The fact that we experience them as separate, that's the chiddush of this world.
But the non-Jews have this.
What do they have?
Tohu.
It's not tohu.
This is not tohu?
No, it's a state where you simply cannot... why would you say the non-Jews have it? They're the most bordered.
We learned it here. You said that we're from the world of Tikkun and they're from the world of Tohu.
No, he said that they have lights from that Esav has lights from the world of Tov. But that's not the same thing.
Not the same thing?
It's true that it has a certain more infinite, more borderless idea to it. Again, the idea of not having borders means that they have not as many isurim. They don't have as many prohibitions, but they still have prohibitions. They're still living in a world of limits. They have the simple prohibition that they can't walk off a building because gravity will kill them. Everybody's living in that same world. In terms of the Torah, they don't have the limits of the Torah. That they haven't added into their repertoire yet. But they have many things that are built into the world from Isa Bereshis. They have many things that make the world a world of borders, of limits, and of processes and hierarchies that it's very interesting that they continually are trying to run away from the hierarchy. It's very like socialism, communism is an attempt to somehow do away with the limits. The stuff they're doing with science is an attempt constantly to do away with the limits. It's very weird. Like, why would you want to do it that way? You would want to do it the other way around. So what's the answer? The answer is that what they're looking for really is mitzvos. Like we said, the mitzvos are coming from the soviv, where there are no borders, where there are no limits. The mitzvahs are the great equalizer. That's what they're missing. Like when they try to do away with hierarchy and say everybody's the same. So I only know of one example that makes sense. To say everybody's the same, I have an IQ of 120, he has an IQ of 140, he has an IQ of 80. I don't know what that means. We're obviously different. And to say everybody's the same, part of, I guess, it's hard for me to make up my mind what the whole gender thing is. Is it an attempt to do away with the definitions and therefore to connect to the Sovev? Or is it an attempt to, because you're missing so many of the hierarchies, to build a new one somehow? So some other spectrum of definitions to make up to make up for the lack of hierarchy in other places. Not sure what it is, but in any case, the real remedy they're looking for is mitzvahs, because what's the great thing? That Moshe Rabbeinu, we talked about this many times, Moshe Rabbeinu and me are the same. Why? Because we both put on tefillin in the morning. And it doesn't matter what Moshe Rabbeinu knows, and I don't know.
Because it's disconnected. The knowledge is disconnected from the act.
It's not disconnected, it's a different dimension. And the dimension of the act is powered by the Sovev. That's what the Baal Shem Tov's whole message was. If you want to create, he didn't say, look, we don't want scholars. We don't want people who know Torah. We don't want Rabbeim. We don't want geniuses in Torah. It's not true. He very much wanted them. But he said at the same time, you have to be aware of the fact that there's also Sovev. And the Sovev, the surrounding light, is a great equalizer, and it comes down into the physical aspect of the mitzvah, the actual performance of the mitzvah. And there, everybody is the same. And so there's no benefit to having more knowledge or less knowledge, being more richer or poorer. It's all the same when you come to the mitzvah. So really, the what you call what they today unfortunately are calling the reading of hierarchies is really built into Yiddishkeit from the point of view of the mitzvahs. That's what the mitzvahs do. And the mitzvahs, when you think about it, it's very interesting. When it comes to a mitzvah, that's the place where there really is no, there's no, how shall I put it, no intermediaries between you and Hashem. That's why the mitzvah is called b'tzavta. That's why the Baal Shem Tov explains, mitzvah comes from the word tzavta. Tzavta in Aramaic means together. It's strange that in Yiddish it sounds the same. I don't know why.
Unification?
No, togetherness. It means that you and I, Hashem, are together.
Uh-huh.
In Yiddish you say zusammen. It actually sounds the same. It's got nothing to do. Two is two. And it's together, so it's zusammen. But tzavta means, the mitzvah means that I'm together with Hashem without any intermediaries. That's what it means. It's chovat haguf. When I say that it's the duty of the body, why don't I say it's the duty of the nefesh? Maybe I should say it's the duty of the soul. It's the duty of the psyche. No, it's the duty of the body. Because the body is the exemplar of something that's sustained not by by the inner light, but by the surrounding light. So I call it chovat aguf. Only I can perform this mitzvah for me. So when it comes to a mitzvah, that's the thing that's missing from it. But when it comes to Torah, what I can learn Torah without having a Rebbe? Of course I have to go back in a chain of a hierarchy that goes all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. Of course, even today, a great rabbi comes. I'm dust next to him. I don't know what he knows. I don't have the years Shemaim he has. I don't have any of the internal functions that he has, the internal knowledge that he has. So there are intermediaries. You can't say that there are not. Well, even when I come to daven, where davening is something in the middle. On the one hand, there's a part of it that's a mitzvah. On the other hand, most of it is pnimius. Most of it is how you daven. So I come to the Rebbe and say, daven for me. Because I don't know how to, but I can't tell the Rebbe, put tefillin on for me. Okay? Because that's coming from the Sovev entirely. That's entirely chovat aguf. I can't tell my Rebbe, go bring a korban for me. I can't tell my Rebbe, go have children for me. I can't do these things. That's part of what my body has to do. So the Baal Shem Tov stressed this, that if you want to create a society in which there is some equality, so it has to go together with the fact that there's also inequality. They go together. Inequality is in terms of the memale, of the hierarchy, and everybody's in a different place on the hierarchy, on the kav, on this line of this, which is also infinite light. That's what he just said. It also contains infinite light, but it's brought down in tzimtzumim. Each level has less and less of it, as it were. Not less in terms of quantity, but less in terms of quality, because there are barriers that it has to cross through, transparent barriers, but they're still barriers. But when it comes to inequality, so that's one side of it. But you also have to have equality. The equality was the chiddush that he stressed. And so when it comes to mitzvahs are equality. They equalize everybody. That's called the sovev.
Okay. So the concept of liverboy, does that apply only to the goof? Liverboy.
No, it's the opposite. Liverboy means the inner. Hashem wants the heart. When we say He wants the heart, we're not talking about how.
That's not mitzvahs? That's not through the mitzvahs?
On the contrary. The way it's always explained by people is, it doesn't matter how you did the mitzvah. In the end, Hashem only wants your intent. You only want, meaning it doesn't matter how many mitzvahs you do.
Right.
In the end, He wants your intent. But you could also, you can say it the way you want to say it now. What you want to say is that, no, it's still, Libabai still means that you have intent. I don't know how to fix it to the mitzvah. Maybe there's a way, I can't see it right now. Okay. ולא היה זה אפשר להיות מאור אינסוף ברוך הוא שכשמו כן הוא. Even Moshe Rabbeinu's chokhmah could not get to the infinite. There's always a gap. רק הייתה כלולה במקורה בשורשה כמו התקללות המידות בשכל דרך משל שהרי המידות נולדו ונטבעו בשכל המידם ודאי היו כלולים בשכל תחילה קודם שנולדו ונטבעו מבחינת מידות מורגשות בפני עצמן. אלא שבעודם כלולים בשכל אין עולות בשם מידות כלל אלא לאחר שנולדו ונתגלה להיות מידה בפני עצמה. וכן הוא explained this analogy in a second, וכך מבחינת חוכמה עילה אינה עולה בשם חוכמה לאחר יציאתה מאלם אל גילוי, יציאה זו שמאלם אל גילוי אינה בחינת השתלשלות, על החוכמה מאין תימצא בחינת עין ממש דרך מציאה. He just says it again in a different way. He just gives an analogy. He says that my speech before I spoke was included somehow in my mind. And meaning the same letters that I'm about to speak, they're somehow in my mind beforehand. And you can't see them, you can't recognize them until they emerge. You don't see them until they emerge. When they're in the mind, they seem to be just one part, like a part of the mind. But when they emerge, you suddenly realize, wait a minute, there was something else here. This analogy is the basis for considered the most difficult hemshech in Chassidus. Ayin Beis is called by the Rebbe Rashav. The Rebbe Rashav there he goes into the question of how can there be spheros before there was any kind of gradation, any kind of separation. So basically, he answers the same answer. He says before it emerged, it was part of it. And now I want to go into what it means that it was part of it already, part of where it came from. Meaning, everything comes from a source, already existed somehow in that source, even if you wouldn't have been able to differentiate it from everything else in that source. So that's the big the big idea behind Hemshech Ayin Beis, is to explain that statement. It's called Eser Sfirot Agnuzot B'Matzinan, the 10 spheros as they're in the emanator. In any case, it's the same thing by analogy as how speech comes out of the mind. So the letters of speech must have been there, but the proof, he says in the Tanya, that I can't differentiate them there is because no one knows how to speak. No one knows how he takes a word in his mind and churns it, pronounces it. Nobody knows the process. So it's emerging suddenly. Suddenly it's coming out. My vocal cords know how to do it. My mouth knows how to do it. I don't know how to do it. Again, it's a muscle. It's not trying to prove you don't know. He says from the fact that you don't know, you can understand what it means that you couldn't see it in your mind. I can't tell you, okay, think of the letter Aleph now. Now pronounce Aleph. You don't take it from the Aleph you saw in your mind. You just know how to say Aleph. But it's the same Aleph that was in your mind. It emerged by a process that you can't see. So he says, so that's what it means, that it was there before, but it seemed part and parcel of everything, and then when it came out, it suddenly became something separate. He says, but when it comes to Chokhmah is even more than that. The Chokhmah, there's no even connection, meaning, in the end, if I hook myself up to an fMRI, and somebody tells me to think of the word Abba and say it, so guess what? They'll see the word Abba in my mind before I say it. Lo and behold. Why? Because it's really there. And when it emerged, take a good a neural scan. I don't know how you would do it. You have to connect the rest of the neurons up. You could theoretically show the passage of the excitation of the neurons causing my vocal cords to do what they do and for the Aleph to come out. So there is a train of events, a succession, a chain of events that causes the word in my mind to become the word in my mouth.
But
you
that
can't
happens for
trace
everything.
it. No, so that's what he's saying. That when it comes to Chokhmah is not that way. That if you would search for how did it come from here to there, it wouldn't.
Okay.
So we have examples of that today. We definitely have examples of that today.
Yeah.
You look in a bubble bath, as they're called, or in a particle accelerator. The last part is called the bubble bath. And there they photograph the happenings after the two protons or whatever it is, they crash into each other at 1,000,000 electron volts, or whatever they use now, probably even more than that. And you look at it and you see that particles come in and out of existence without any causation, meaning you understand it as part of the process, but you cannot trace it back. It suddenly comes out and it disappears and it emerges somewhere else. And
There's a leap.
There's a leap. And in general, you don't need that actually. The truth is, every time I do this, every time I hit the something else, my electrons are performing quantum leaps inside my hand.
They transfer. Yeah.
They're going from one energy level to the next, and that's why you hear sound, because part of the energy is released as sound. A little bit of it is also released as light, but you need to have a really, really dark room and a very, very sensitive camera to be able to see that light. But every time there's
Impact.
Any kind of impact, there's also light energy released. Okay, and that's also quantum leap. And now this higher wisdom, sorry, I think I already read this. והיינו מערת בחינת סובב כל עלמין, מכל שכן להיות התהוות מאין יש גשמיות, שאין התהוות הגשמיות מרוחניות דרך השתלשלות אליו עלו, לפי שאין ארוך בין רוחניות לגשמיות כלל. And he says this general principle is exactly what's happening between spirituality and corporeality. That even though they are connected, there is a connection between them. One begets the other in a leap. There is no direct connection. There's no direct way to see how one becomes the other. And I think that on a day like today, you have to think about this when you see it. But the bracha that we say when we hear thunder, it's very interesting. When you see lightning, what do you say?
Same as what do you call it?
When you hear thunder, you say shekocho gvurato maleh olam. What's the difference between the two?
And why is one the same as the rainbow?
Why would you say two different brachas? It's the same event.
Because we heard what we saw and we saw what we heard.
What's the difference between the two?
No, I mean, say in terms of the Matan Torah.
Obviously, you're thinking the right way, meaning anything that you say, sound and sight, so I have to go back to the Torah, where did I have sound and sight and have some kind of relationship between them, or some interesting relationship between them. So the interesting relationship was a Matan Torah, obviously. So also in Ayin Beis, he has a long section about this to explain what it means that the people saw the sounds. What does that mean? Basically, the meaning is that kol, when you say kol, you mean something that is already in what we call mimaleh. And light is an example of something that's soviv, relatively speaking. Meaning that they are considered to be completely two different phenomena. Not because they're two different phenomena. They're the same phenomena. We know that they come from the same place. But they represent two different manifestations of the same phenomena. One of them, the light that you see, that's the soviv. And it's something incredible, because what do you see in the soviv? It's an incredible thing. If you look at lightning, it suddenly emerges out of nowhere. It doesn't even make any sense. I mean, that's not making sense. Exactly what we just said about quantum leaps in electrons, that they go from one energy level to the next. The reason is they're excited enough, and enough of them are excited enough that suddenly that energy has to go somewhere. But because it's a leap, you don't see a process. It's exactly what's hiding behind it. Till this day, nobody knows how lightning actually works, but it's clear that something has caused the electrons in the clouds to gain too much electricity for where they are, and they have to get rid of it. I don't remember what the word is. Discharge, thank you. This is from lecture 1 today. So they have to discharge. And that discharge is instantaneous, and it emerges out of nowhere. Because that's just how it is.
It's not gradual.
There's no gradual state in the middle. There's no, like, you see the light, you would expect to see the light building up, and then boom. No. Because it's an example, it's a very strong example of what we mean when we say that Hashem is skipping over from the spiritual to the physical. It's not, and I'm not saying that the clouds are spiritual, but they're one of the best analogies that we have to something spiritual. Because that's whenever you hear that Hashem, that I don't know, Hiram, the king of Tzor, he said, not Hiram, Nebuchadnezzar, he said, I'm not fitting for regular people. I should make myself a cloud and fly in the sky. So he's not an idiot. He knows he can't make himself a cloud and he can't sit in clouds. So everybody's been in a cloud. It's not like you don't know that you can't sit on a cloud. It's just vapor. It's nothing that you can sit on. But what does he mean? He means, I'm not for this body. I need to be something spiritual. I'm way beyond this reality. So it's an image. The cloud is always an image for something spiritual. And Hashem, okay.
Wow.
And Hashem came in a cloud on Har Sinai. There was a cloud above. When we say that there was a cloud over the tent of Sarah, over the tent of Rivka, over the tent of Rachel and Leah, what do we mean there's a cloud? There's no cloud following them. Okay, we mean that there was a spiritual state that continually was with them. But you have to explain to people, what do you mean? What am I going to say? But there's nothing there. But the people who came into their tent, they felt that you feel that today you have a word for it, it's called atmosphere. it's called spirituality. I don't know, different ways to try to grab the experience and try to give it words. So this cloud is now discharging suddenly. The act of the discharge, the light that comes down, is Oseh Maaseh Bereshit. Why? Because all of Maaseh Bereshit was a leap. But when I say that I hear the sound, that's Kochol Gvurato Malei Olam. That's Memale already. And we see that it's that way. How do we see that it's that way? Because you can tell how far away you are from the storm by counting the amount of seconds between the light that you see and when the sound arrives at your ear. So distance matters. That's exactly what Memala means. There's hierarchy. There's closer and there's further away. So they're two different phenomena, and we want to differentiate between them. So we have two different brachas, two different blessings that we say. But these two different blessings are one of the strongest examples of what he means here. Okay. So.